Thank you, everybody, and thank you, EduBridge, and thank you. I think I'd like to thank EXL also for the support. I think that they've given EduBridge. So the session is around the banking ombudsman scheme, and I think I hope some of you have used the scheme, but in case you haven't, of course, I will take you through. The intention of this session is to touch upon the elements of the ombudsman scheme. It's not, while I am a lawyer, etc., I will try to keep this not very, purely legal, but to understand the process. To start off, what is an ombudsman, right? Because this is not a word that we come across on a daily basis. In fact, the word ombudsman is typically, if you look in India, there are very few, um, you know, schemes or very few such mechanisms which are there. Ombudsman comes from a Swedish Scandinavian word. It basically means somebody, a person who looks into matters, has a commission, is empowered to make certain decisions. So if I were to, sort of uh, contextualize this in the Indian scenario, uh, the other sort of structure, which is like an ombudsman, which many of us may have heard of, is the Lokpal or Lokayukt, which is in the arena of obviously governance. But that would be the closest to what an ombudsman is in the Indian context. And of course, the banking ombudsman is another, such creation. If you, look at this particular mechanism, it's meant to help customers of banks, uh, and including now people who hold credit cards, debit cards as well, and people who holds e-wallets, UPI, etc., resolve their disputes, etc., with the banks. What I think, if I just move on, and take you through a slide which sets out the brief introduction. This particular scheme was launched in 1995. There was a Section 35A inserted into the Banking Regulation Act. The Banking Regulation Act, for your benefit, in case since many of you may not have gone through that particular law, is basically a law which the government of India has made to regulate banking in India. Banking is a regulated sector, so there are government norms around each and everything that a bank can do, as well as the certain obligations which are cast on banks, because they're dealing with public money, and therefore the very stringent mechanism is there. And as you are also aware, Reserve Bank of India is the regulator of the banking sector in India. So Reserve Bank of India launched the Banking Ombudsman Scheme in 1995, and with the intention of making it easier for customers to resolve their differences with banks and the branches, without having to go to court. Prior to this, of course, if you had a dispute, you could, of course, approach your bank. If the bank did not give you the relevant remedy or relevant result that you're looking for, you had to go to court. You could have gone under the Consumer Protection Act. You could have gone under, generally under civil suit as well. So those jurisdictions still remain, right? You still have those. So this banking ombudsman scheme does not take away any of your rights to go to court in case you are not happy with the services the bank has provided. But this gives you a quick, easy solution. It's as you will see when I run through it, I will talk a little bit about how the scheme works. You will see how easy it is. It is not, unlike say going to court, where you have to, where there are certain formalities, where it is, very which are very strict, need to be followed. You need to engage a lawyer, engage a vakil, an external advisor. In this particular case, under this scheme, nothing is required. It's a direct direct access you have to the ombudsman's office. You can file your complaint. The ombudsman will look into it. He will try to mediate between the bank and you, try to arrive at a solution and give his recommendations. And in case you're not happy with the recommendations, you of course have your other legal recourse. The banking ombudsman scheme primarily and initially extended to scheduled commercial banks, which are all your HDFC, SBI, etc. There are urban banks, urban commercial banks, there are regional rural banks, small finance banks, and of course, small finance banks and payment banks have come recently. But earlier, it was broadly between scheduled commercial, primary urban banks, and regional rural banks. So it extended to all of them, and all customers had recourse to this. So there was no requirement that you need to hold a certain amount of money, or there is no minimum threshold, etc. There is a separate ombudsman scheme now for NBFCs as well, which are non-banking financial companies. I'm not going into the difference between the two, but uh, any detailed discussion is not within the purview of this topic. But the basic difference between a bank and an NBFC is a bank can take deposits from the public. All banks can take deposits from the public and have the right to lend and borrow, while NBFCs have certain restrictions. So certain NBFCs can take public deposits, but very restricted. They can't typically do what you would call a savings account, etc. So they can't be constantly borrowing and lending money on a day-to-day basis. So typically they can do deposits of a certain tenure, etc. This particular, as I mentioned, if you see the last point on this slide, this particular scheme was launched with the public welfare in view, that look, this will give an expeditious and inexpensive forum for bank customers to resolve their complaints in relation to services rendered by the bank. And a lot of services are covered. I will not go in very much detail, but almost everything that you will face, any problem you face with your bank, you can take it up. I've personally taken up 2 disputes under the banking ombudsman scheme for my personal, in relation to my personal accounts with my bank. And both cases, interestingly, I've got very good, resolution, and immediate and urgent, resolution has been given. Not always, it's not always in my favor only. Usually it's a balanced approach. So the ombudsman is also, as you would realize, he's from the regulator, so he can't always come and take the customer's side if the customer is being unreasonable. But as I said, it's a balanced approach, and in terms of cost, there's no cost to the customer. It's all sort of built into the system. So moving on, a little bit about the historical background. As I was mentioning, there was I think, with banks having been governed by the Banking Regulation Act and the banking system, which India developed in late 1940s and 50s. And thereafter, you would have heard historically there was a nationalization of banks. So there was and now, of course, there has been there are many private banks also which are in play. It has always been seen the bank and the customer always have a slightly uneven negotiating position. And there was a growing public policy concern around this factor. And that was one reason why this particular scheme was taken up. There was widespread customer dissatisfaction for many, many years. As you would have realized, it was 45 years after the Banking Regulation Act was put in place that this scheme was brought into play. So there were many such issues which were taken up, in fact, at various forums, including the parliament. So, of course, these days you don't see anything, civil and any civil discussions happening in parliament. People usually are tearing books and throwing things. But at a certain, in the 1990s, when this came up, 80s and 90s, there were a lot of debates around this matter. And thereafter, the Ministry of Finance and RBI and various other stakeholders took this matter up. There was, I think, Also, this was, if you recollect, 1991 was also the year when liberalization happened, widespread liberalization, which allowed a lot of foreign players to enter India. Um, you will also remember 1990s was also when, a lot of different things culturally also happened. There was the advent of cable television. There was, slowly internet, media, etc. started coming in. So people started growing aware of their rights also, and the customers of banks started looking at banks not just as an institution but also as a service provider. Keeping that in mind, and keeping in mind the growing dissatisfaction and the fact that the RBI also wanted to discipline, the banks, because it is the ultimate regulator, and it basically saw that even small issues like non-payment of interest, late payment of amounts due, various other such matters were matters of, showed the indiscipline of banks. And of course, RBI could not correct everything through audits, etc. They would, by the time this matter would be discovered, it would be too late. So the decision was to put in place this mechanism of this banking ombudsman. Now, as I mentioned, 1995 was when the scheme came in. There have been multiple amendments to the scheme. 5 amendments that which are which are noteworthy. I'm not going into the amendments, but it's changed, it's evolved with time, right? Initially, the number of services, the mechanism, etc. Mechanism was largely the same, but the number of services, coverage, etc. has increased. Now, as I also mentioned to you, it covers credit debit cards also, customers who have credit debit cards. So let's say you have a credit card with State Bank of India or with Citibank or HDFC. You may not be a customer of the bank from a traditional sense. You may not hold a savings bank account with the bank. So earlier you were out of the ombudsman scheme to that extent, but now disputes in relation to cards also, where you're not a savings bank account holder, those also have come in play. E-wallets, UPI, as you would have realized, since in fact e-wallets, UPI have become more and more popular since demonetization. They've only grown in popularity, and of course, post COVID also, it really has picked up since people, are hesitant about handling paper currency. So all of that is now covered within the ombudsman scheme, and there's a separate scheme, as I mentioned, for NBFCs, which we are, currently not looking into. Now, looking at briefly at, I'm looking at the amendments, but after that, I will actually get into, or perhaps let me just skip forward and let me briefly mention what are the nature of matters which are sort of covered under the scheme, and then I'll come back to the amendments. Now, typically, I've just listed a few. Typically, things like non-payment, as I mentioned, or delays in the payment or collection of instruments like checks, drafts, etc., would be covered. Non-acceptance of small denomination notes. In a lot of cases, customers used to see that certain denominations would not be taken. In fact, now it may be the other way around. There may be cases where large denomination notes may not be accepted by certain banks, because of worries around, whether they're authentic, whether they're forged, etc. And so non-acceptance of small denomination notes is also covered. It's one of the grounds for somebody, if it's not done, you can approach the ombudsman. Or if they accept it, but with a commission being charged, they should not. Banks are not allowed to charge any commission for accepting any notes which are, legal tender issued by the Reserve Bank of India. If there are non-acceptance of coins which are tendered, and again for charging of commission thereof, that is also something which is covered. If you see here in these two, I don't know whether you are able to see the bullet points, but it gives some leeway to the banks. It says without sufficient cause, which typically would be that, let's say, you you provide notes, but which are torn or which are disfigured or which are in any way, not in the form or shape which they're supposed to keep. For for those cases, perhaps there is a leeway which the banks can get. So there are some subtle tweaks in the language which you should watch out for, because there may be certain cases which are exempted or accepted from the ombudsman. So if, let's say, there's a genuine cause, the ombudsman will, of course, find that out, and he will reject the complaint. In a number of cases recently, because the number of complaints have also gone up a lot, the ombudsman, in fact, does not really give an explanation. He just rejects it, stating it does not fall within this particular regulation or sub-regulation. So it's very important, before you submit the complaint, please go through the ombudsman scheme, which is available on the RBI website. I can try and share the link with you at the end of the session. The fourth big area where we do see a lot of, the bank sees a lot of complaints coming in, are non-payment or delays in payment of inward remittances. So when you're receiving money, that is called an inward remittance. That could be an inward remittance from another country. It could be an inward remittance from another bank. So if that is not paid or it's delayed, now banks will have a certain turnaround time, will have a certain, specified time that they have communicated to you for clearance of instruments. Now, if those are, for example, if it's a paper instrument and it's from a different bank, it's a different location, so typically it's somewhere between 2 to 3 days, some cases maybe more. So they will give you a certain specified, advertised, publicized timeline. If it is beyond that, you can take up the matter, or if they don't pay you at all. So there are certain cases which we may not have the time to go into, but there are a number of cases also. There's a compendium of the cases without names and dates, etc., which are available on the RBI website, which give the facts and decision. You will actually see cases where it's been so extreme that a check has been deposited. The bank has mentioned that, look, it has bounced or it has not been honored, but actually transferred the money in, and they have not paid the account holder for months. It's not even 1 or 2 days, for months. And those are very extreme cases where obviously the ombudsman has been very harsh, has also awarded compensation for mental agony and harassment which the customer has suffered. The fifth bullet is around, or the fifth point is cases where bank has failed to issue or delayed in issuance of drafts, demand drafts, pay orders, or bankers' checks. Again, typically it's instantaneous. As soon as you provide the funds to the bank is expected to issue it, provided it's within working hours, of course, and subject to signatories being available. In case that is not done, then once again you have a ground to approach the ombudsman. The last three I think we can go through quickly. Refusal to open, deposit, close accounts, or delay in such transactions. Again, there's a caveat to that: without any valid reason for refusal. So let's say you go to a bank and say, I want to open an account. You can, for example, you are entitled to file a complaint, but let's say that you've not submitted the documents. As you're aware now, you need certain KYC documents. There are address proof, there's identity proof, various other documents which are required to open an account. If those are not given, then of course that is a valid reason for refusal. Similarly, to close accounts, typically you need to file a form stating that the account is to be closed. You also have to notify which is how the payment of the balance is to be made. Let's say that is not specified, then the bank can genuinely and validly state that, look, I was not able to close it because the relevant procedures were not followed. So for following of applicable procedure, filing of relevant forms, if there are KYC to be done, KYC is being done, all of that gives the bank an opportunity to provide a valid reason. Other than that, if everything has been done, And in spite of that, the bank does not open or close, then that's definitely a ground for approaching the ombudsman. Typically, you would, in most cases, it's not that you would get any compensation, but typically the ombudsman would ask the bank to expedite the process or get it done. And usually, in my experience and from what I see of the statistics, I think the number of complaints out of the, if let's say a number of complaints received, about 90 to 95% of the complaints are resolved promptly, and there are only 3-4% of the complaints which are probably cannot be solved because of any specific reasons. The next point is around levying of charges without adequate prior notice to customer. You would see, if you read, a lot of complaints are around that. The banks usually typically have certain charges, such as if you don't maintain adequate balance, etc. Now, in certain cases, the banks have advertised recently, you would have, or maybe not even recently, 5-6 years back, most banks have been told that they must allow for zero balance accounts on the savings side. In spite of that, certain banks continue charging, uh, putting charges or levying charges for not um, maintaining adequate balance. They charge for certain debit card charges, credit card charges, etc. So all of those cases where those charges are not informed to the customer could be grounds for approaching the ombudsman. Now, that does not mean that those charges will be informed to you if you're a customer. It's not that you will get individual intimation that, look, this charge is changed or that charge is changed. Many banks do that, but a large number of banks will typically put them up on the notice board, or if you are using electronic banking, net banking, you will see, if you go to the bank's website, typically, those will flash. There'll be scrolls running. So there are a number of ways by which banks inform you. They may not be, it's not that somebody will call you or send you a letter stating that this charge has changed. However, if it is not properly advertised, you can also take it up. There is not much, guidance around what is adequate prior notice. It's a very factual point, but definitely in case you don't see it, and if you've been checking the website, and typically if you have seen certain other charges, then do try and take screenshots of that, because evidence is very important, and the banking ombudsman will ask for that evidence if they have to mediate the matter with the bank branch. The second last point here on this page, on the slide, is around ATM and debit card related transactions. There are a number of, I don't know whether you've personally faced it, but I'm sure you've heard of cases where, where people have filed or rather gone and withdrawn money or tried to withdraw money at an ATM. They have, they've got a error because of any reason, but when they go back home or when they check their account, they see a debit. This is not really uncommon, and again, it does not mean that itself is a ground for, for example, going to the ombudsman. Typically, if you call your bank, the bank will say that, look, within 24 to 48 hours, these funds will reflect back in your account, and it will. But in certain cases, you may see situations where this does not happen, and you will also see cases where there are multiple debits or one withdrawal, or larger debit than the amount which is withdrawn, and various other matters. Earlier, in fact, there were a lot of cases around the ATM, dispensing money, and within a few seconds, if you did not take the funds, if you did not take the currency notes out of the ATM, then it would retract. So it would basically take the currency notes back. There were a lot of cases where people, had situations where they were not able to take out all the currency notes. It retracted. Then there was a discrepancy in the amount which was withdrawn versus the amount which was shown as withdrawn, and the banks would, face a lot of complaints on that basis. I believe the latest position is that the banks now do not retract the funds. So, in a sense, if you, at least for it stays for some more time, And in fact, if you see ATMs, they usually come with a disclaimer stating, as per latest regulations, the ATM will not retract. Hence, please be careful. Please take your money. Please count your notes. The multiple cautions and disclaimers, etc., which come when you are using the machine. So those are all important. Those are not, cosmetic. Those have been the result of many such banking ombudsman related or other consumer matters which customers have filed against the bank. What is the procedure, right? I mean, we are talking about all of this, and you must be wondering, what is the procedure for going and approaching the banking ombudsman? It's very easy. It's a simple process. You can typically do it sitting at your desk with just a computer and maybe a scanner or a camera where you can, or a phone with a camera and a digital scanner. Basically, what you need to, the person who has the grievance himself, so the customer who has to make the complaint. Either he can do it himself or an authorized representative. So let's say there's an elderly person, he or she is not able to write it out or able to use the prepare his application. He can appoint a relative or a friend, anybody other than an advocate, because the reason why an advocate or a lawyer cannot be appointed clearly is to make this process less adversarial. So it's not it's not a courtroom. Ombudsman is not a judge, and he's more, as I said, he's more like a mediator. He will take the dispute. He will speak to both the parties. He'll try and reach a common consensus and a solution, rather than finding. It's not a fault finding mechanism. So the person, as I mentioned, who has the grievance, who's the customer, or however you call it, the aggrieved person makes the complaint to the ombudsman. Now, either you can file it online or offline. You can make a full set of your documents. You can send it. There are currently 22 ombudsmen in the country. The certain states have one. Certain states have more than one, depending on the size of the state and the number of customers and the number of complaints which typically come in. And usually they have a territorial jurisdiction. Now, what does territorial jurisdiction mean? It basically means that their authority to deal with complaints is limited to the area or territory which is assigned to them. So, for example, if I look at Maharashtra, I believe there are two banking ombudsmen. One is to take care of the area of Mumbai and its suburbs, and the other is to take care of the rest of Maharashtra and Goa. So what would happen is, typically there are 2-3 ways of looking at jurisdiction, and you can read the ombudsman scheme. If it is a case of a branch related complaint, where there's a physical banking related issue, you will approach the banking ombudsman for the territory where the branch is located. So let's say you have an issue with a branch in Mumbai, as I mentioned. You will go to the ombudsman who's taking care of Mumbai region. You may personally be residing anywhere else in the country. That does not matter. On the other hand, if it's a card-related issue, credit card, debit card, etc., I understand the jurisdiction is dependent on what is the billing address, or what is the registered address of the customer. Where the customer's address is located, the jurisdictional ombudsman of accordingly will be approached. So you can find a list of the ombudsman, as I said, on the RBI website. The address is there, and you can, and also email IDs are there. So you can either, as I said, physically file it or file it by way of a email, attaching all the annexures, etc. Now, once you file a complaint, typically you will receive some reference number, etc. And as I mentioned, the ombudsman will, look at the matter. He will take it up. The typical number of days which an ombudsman takes could be anything from, if it's a simple complaint, if the ombudsman is not particularly stretched with a backlog of complaints, it could be even within 15-20 days. But on an average, I think the amount of time which has been taken is somewhere around turnaround time Earlier, I believe the turnaround time had gone up to 53 days on an average. Now it's, as per the Ombudsman's annual report, which we received last year of 2019, it has gone down to 47 days. While the number of complaints has gone up, but the improvement is in TAT or turnaround time is largely due to the continuous follow-up with the with the ombudsman and the efficient handling by the ombudsman. So their efficiency, I think the number of resources, the number of people who are handling it in the ombudsman office is also increased. So hence you should not see anything more than, as I said, 45 to 50 days is the typical timeline. That includes, they may come back to you, they may write to you. The bank may contact you stating that, look, the ombudsman has reached out to us, hence we want to resolve it in a certain way. So various methodologies would happen. The banks also want to ensure that their number of complaints against them decrease, and they have to, they don't receive any adverse order from the ombudsman. Now, if you look at, the number of complaints, etc., the number of complaints in 2018-19, again, as per statistics, was 2 lakh plus complaints. And most of these, I think around 97% to 96 to 97% were resolved within the year. And hence, as I was mentioning earlier, they're all typically resolved. There's a complaint cost also, which you can see. The complaint cost is not to be paid by you. It's basically the cost of handling the complaint at the end of RBI. That typically is around 3,000 rupees per complaint. This could be, this includes the number of people, the salaries of people who handle the complaint, obviously, certain cost of postage, stamping, other resources which the ombudsman requires. All of that is, comes into place. So if you look at the number of complaints of around 2 lakhs and say 3,000 rupees per complaint, you can, have a general sense of what is the budget of the ombudsman office throughout the country. And I think, if you look at the cost and the delivery which we are getting, I think it's far more efficacious than courts are going to court. I would request all the participants to put themselves on mute, because I can hear somebody's, obviously inadvertently put on some music, which is fine. I think we can probably put on the music once the session is over. That'll be nice. Now there's some limitations, right? And I think there's a certain prerequisite also that which ombudsman will typically ask for. The ombudsman usually asks the party that, look, have you reached out to the bank or branch itself? Because the ombudsman does not want to have a situation where he just receives a complaint directly, right? If you have a situation where your bank has stated that you have withdrawn 1 lakh, but actually no money has been withdrawn, the ombudsman or the RBI, and of course common sense requires you that you first contact your bank branch, you try and resolve it there, and in case it's not resolved, then you approach the ombudsman. And within the bank also, if you see, and I know many of you are interested in banking, etc. If you go to the bank's policies around grievance redressal, most banks have a codified redressal scheme, grievance redressal scheme. They follow certain banking standards, banking conduct and standards of business, and those have a multi-tier mechanism of grievance redressal. So the first one will go to your branch, the second one will go to a senior intermediate officer, and the final, typically the grievance is handled by the senior most. There's a grievance redressal, there's a nodal officer within each bank. Now, once you go through that, typically that process itself takes a few months. Hence, there's the scheme has put in a limitation period also, that look, it should not be more than 1 year after the complainant has received a reply of the bank, from the bank, of his representation, or if it's not received, then a limitation of 1 year and 1 month, that's 13 months since the date he has made his representation to the bank. So you would think that, oh, this is very long, and why is this limitation period that long? That allows, that is meant to give the customer some time, that in case he's also, because of circumstances, unable to take up the matter immediately, he's is able to take it. So it's, as I said, 12 months from the bank itself replying to the customer stating that, look, they can't resolve it because of ABC reasons, or 13 months from the period he filed the complaint or representation with the bank, which has not been responded to. So again, you would wonder that, are there cases where banks don't respond? And I will tell you, yes, there are many cases where banks do not even have the basic courtesy of responding or resolving the complaint. So it's not, it's nothing uh, extraordinary. So this is the outward limit. You can't, if you cross that 1 year, typically the ombudsman, is, in order to ensure that number of complaints he's also handling are, manageable, he will not allow, or he will not take it up. He will just reject it. He may mention that, look, it's been rejected for, the limitation period having been exceeded, or he may not even mention it. He may just reject it without mentioning anything. So do, in case you are planning to, or in case you know anybody who's planning to file a complaint, please make sure that, look, you adhere to the limitation period. This is a great mechanism, but some basic criteria has to be fulfilled. Now, in terms of the process, once the complaint is filed, the process is fairly simple. The process is that, as I mentioned, the banking ombudsman is more of a mediator, conciliator. He sends a copy of the complaint to the branch or the office of the bank, as I mentioned in the complaint. And the endeavor of doing that is that, look, in a sense, he's putting the pressure of the RBI's banking ombudsman office on the branch or bank. The ultimate intention is to promote a settlement of the complaint. Again, as I mentioned, he's more of a mediator, conciliator. He's not a fact finding or an adversarial body. So it's not that he will examine witnesses or he will take up beyond the initial evidence of the matter having happened. There is no real complaint, written statement. Typically what you would find in courts, if any of you are aware of that. He basically takes the complaint, sends it to the bank or branch. He asks them to resolve it. He's also, in fact, while you may find he's quite, controlled over the thing, he will, he's typically not somebody who, he's not very, he's not particularly easy on the banks either. So he will send a very harsh letter to the bank stating, in case he sees that there's a discrepancy on the bank's part, stating that you resolve it within X number of days, or else I'll pass my recommendation against you. And usually, if there are a number of ombudsman recommendations against him, those also get picked up in audit, etc. So banks also try to minimize and settle these matters as soon as possible. So yeah, so I think, let me come back quickly to that who is an ombudsman. I think basically that was one point which you may be curious about. As I mentioned to you, there are 22 ombudsmen. I mean, is it somebody? Can it be anyone? Can it be a can it be anybody who the RBI decides? No. Typically, it's somebody who's at a general manager or a chief general manager level. As I mentioned, he's in, the ombudsman are based out of different locations. So obviously he or she has to be somebody who is based in that particular location. So the ombudsman, for example, for Mumbai or Maharashtra is based there. The ombudsman for Delhi, there are 2 or 3 ombudsmen here. They are based in Delhi or thereabouts. Now, usually the appointment is for a period not exceeding 3 years. They have certain reporting obligations. They have to send a report as of 30th June of every year, stating how many complaints they have dealt with, what has been the resolution period, is there any backlog, is there any pendency. So, and that particular a compilation of all the reports, analysis, etc., is also released by the RBI, the Office of Banking Ombudsman, to the public. So you can go to the RBI's website, the Ombudsman page, and you can find those reports. They are immense. They release a lot of data around what's the, as I mentioned to you, all the data on number of complaints, various other things, to show what is the efficacy of the system. Now, again, I would request everybody to put themselves on mute. Just a second. I've got. Yeah. So briefly, I'll just, as the last part of my presentation, just mention the 2017 amendments, which will show that what are the changes, and may also add certain color to this particular topic. As I mentioned, the banking ombudsman scheme has been improved. There have been 5 sets of amendments from the time it was put in place. The intention of these amendments is to suit the emerging requirements of customers, how the markets have changed, how the services of the banks have changed, how banks, as I mentioned again, from financial institutions have become more in the nature of service providers. So accordingly, the 2016-17 amendments were also introduced with a similar understanding. They were meant to enhance consumer protection. They are, more consumer friendly, customer friendly. Certain new grounds of complaints have been added. For example, mis-selling of financial products to banks. Now, as you would see, banks don't only borrow, lend, and allow you to keep deposits, savings deposit, fixed deposit, recurring deposits. They also now sell various financial products. So if you go today to a bank, and let's say you maintain a healthy balance, they will start immediately cross-selling to you. They will typically, banks have started having a relationship banker concept, relationship manager, and that person will try to sell you everything from travel insurance, life insurance, prepaid cards, bank lockers, various other facilities. And in fact, certain cases, they also sell products which are not even backed or promoted by the same bank or the same group of companies. So any sort of cases where they have missold a product. Now, what do you mean by mis-selling? A product which is not meant for you. So when you're selling financial products, there are certain guidelines around that, depending on which kind of product it is. So if it's an insurance product, IRDA, which is the insurance regulatory body, that regulates selling of those products. So there are certain guidelines around that, which include looking at who the person is, basis the customer profile. It has to be, the correct information has to be provided to him. He cannot be promised certain returns which are not, which are not conservative, which are not as per the guidelines. So all of those particular factors, if they're not adhered to, and the only person who will know if that's being adhered to is the institution or the banker or the person who's marketing the product. As a customer, you would not. So in case you typically, mis-selling is only detected once the sale is made, and then let's say they have sold you a product which is not as per the terms and features which they have advertised and told you, or they have sold you a product which is not supposed to be sold to you at all. That is one new ground which has been added. Deficiency in banking services provided through mobiles, that's also one additional factor, one additional ground of complaint. As you will see, and I'm sure all of you have seen, that most of the banking nowadays is being done through mobile phones, and so you can in fact find out your balance through mobile phone. You can obviously you'll get your alerts of withdrawals, deposits, so various other such things. And if, let's say, you've signed up for an alert, you're not getting those alerts, or you're getting wrong alerts, or you're carrying out a transaction through mobile banking that does not go through, and you are, for example, in a you are not able to fulfill your requirements, those are now grounds that you can take up, saying that, look, this was a service provided by the bank and that was not provided properly, substandard or deficient. I want to file a complaint. The pecuniary limit of the banking ombudsman for passing an award has been increased to rupees 20 lakhs. Now, finally, as I was mentioning to you, once the conciliation etc. goes through, if the matter is not resolved by the branch and the customer, as on a between intersay between them, then the ombudsman has to finally pass an award or a recommendation. Now, that limit of how much he can sort of award up to has been increased to 20 lakh rupees. Obviously, that has to have a connection with the service deficiency in place, what damages the person has suffered, and if to the extent that can be demonstrated, he can pass a recommendation or award to that extent. Now, there are appeals which can be filed against the banking ombudsman's decision. That has also been, expanded now. Earlier, those were limited, and that gives, enhances the opportunity which is available to customers who are still aggrieved. Let's say they are not happy with the decision of the banking ombudsman, they can definitely file an appeal. Finally, as such, and as the last point on this slide, cases which are closed by the banking ombudsman grounds that the complaint requires detailed investigation or elaborate evidence, which earlier was non-appealable, now they have been made appealable. So that's a connected point to the earlier one. So which again allows you to, in matters which are complicated or mixed, a mix of facts and regulations, those can also be taken up on an appeal. Now, appeal typically lies with the deputy governor of RBI, who's sort of the second highest authority within the RBI, and even the details of the appellate authority, which is the deputy governor, also available on the RBI's website. Now, a couple of more points from this particular thing, and I can then we can see if there are any questions. Now, there are compensation up to 10 lakhs for loss of time, expenses incurred, harassment and mental obligation, anguish suffered by the complainant have also been extended now to all sorts of complaints. They were earlier available for credit card related complaints. These amounts and numbers obviously will change from time to time. So please do check the Ombudsman website. It's a web page within the RBI website. As I mentioned earlier, the total number of offices of banking ombudsman have now come up to 22. These are, and 5 new offices have been opened and operationalized. This is in order to obviously more efficiently handle matters. In order to address the rising complaints of consumers of services NBFC, as I mentioned earlier, there's a ombudsman scheme for NBFCs which have been approved. And finally, there are multiple awareness programs, town halls, etc., which the RBI has taken up, and the Office of Banking Ombudsman has taken up to publicize this process. There are also advertisements in the media, in newspapers, etc., which the RBI places from time to time, which make people aware that look, this Banking Ombudsman scheme is there and people can use it, and it's a far more efficient manner of resolving matters rather than going to court or taking up those matters. And finally, of course, the recourse to courts, etc., remain. I think there is no, this bank, as I mentioned, the Banking Ombudsman scheme does not oust an individual's ability to approach, or customer's ability to approach the courts. And that is something which, has to be also borne in mind, that look, there is no reason why you should feel constrained to use this mechanism only. You can, in any event, take up the matter, directly with the court as well. Of course, do remember that in terms of cost, efficacy, etc., that may not be the most suggested or opted for method. But in case you are not able to get justice from the banking ombudsman's office, then of course that is completely available to you. So that's in a nutshell. I think that's broadly my brief presentation on this matter. I am just going to unshare this screen. In case there are any questions, we can take it up. And of course, if there are any points that I have missed, we can try and address this as well. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. So basically, you told that that is one department in Mumbai, one or two department for this. So basically, if I am having an account in my private sector, the other person is having in a public sector. So is this all the people can go in that one organization and file a complaint?
Good,
All
great
in one, you
question.
mean to say, irrespective
Great.
of the current account?
Yeah. So great question, Kavita, right? Right. So Kavita, there are
Yes.
22. Yeah. So there are 22 offices of banking ombudsman now, which are there all over the country. So I don't know where you based, Kavita. Are you based
Okay.
in New Delhi?
In Mumbai.
In
Mumbai.
Mumbai. So Mumbai
Mumbai, sir.
has, yeah. So
Yeah.
Mumbai has, as I mentioned, actually two banking ombudsman. One is taking care of
So yeah.
Mumbai and suburbs, and one is taking care of Maharashtra, rest of Maharashtra, and Pune region. So depending on which area
Okay.
your, the branches, you will have to approach. And as
Okay.
I mentioned to you, every bank, whether it's a private bank, public
Private.
sector
Okay.
bank, nationalized bank, all banks are governed
Okay.
by RBI. So your friend can also go, you can also go, whoever is
Okay. Okay. Fine.
subject to that, you
Oh.
can approach.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita.
Good, Kapita. So yes, trainees, yes, we have got this opportunity. So please do ask questions if you have any. Please do not hesitate to ask questions. Hello. Doesn't anybody have any question?
हेलो सो हेलो
Yes,
Yes,
Ankita.
yes, Ankita. Please go ahead.
यस सर मैं ये कहना चाहती थी आपसे कि आपने जो भी प्रेजेंटेशन दिया इज वेरी नाइस बट मुझे बहुत सारी चीजें जो इंग्लिश में थी मुझे समझ में नहीं आई एंड मेनी आर स्टूडेंट्स इन हियर जो वो नहीं एबल हैं इंग्लिश को बहुत डीपली समझने के लिए तो प्लीज आप एक समरी दे दीजिए हिंदी में ताकि हम भी समझ सकें
जरूर जरूर।
यस सर थैंक यू
मेरी मेरी हिंदी भी उतनी अच्छी नहीं है, लेकिन जितना मैं
या
कर
यस
सकता
सर
हूँ, थोड़ा
बट
बहुत
प्लीज
इंग्लिश में मैं समझा देता हूँ। तो जहाँ बेसिकली जैसे मैंने कहा था, ये ओम्बुड्समैन, लोकपाल, बैंक, काफ़ी जगह पे बैंकिंग लोकपाल भी बुलाया जाता है। तो इनका जो अथॉरिटी है, इनकी जो पावर्स हैं, ये है कि जो कस्टमर, आपका जो बैंक के ग्राहक है, उनके जो मुश्किलें या फिर उनको जो सर्विस में जो डेफिशिएंसी होता है, जैसे आपका चेक टाइम से क्लियर नहीं हुआ है, या फिर आपको पेमेंट मिला है कहीं से, वो पेमेंट आपके अकाउंट तक नहीं पहुंचा, तो ऐसी स्थिति में आप पहले तो अपने बैंक के पास जाएं। बैंक के खुद के अंदरूनी एक ग्रीवेंस रिड्रेसल, जो ये ऐसी सिचुएशंस को डील करने के लिए उनके पास एक मैकेनिज्म होता है। ये ज़्यादातर 3 स्टेजेस में होता है। पहले आपके ब्रांच के पास, फिर वहाँ से एक एस्केलेशन होता है एक और ऑफिसर के पास, और फाइनली एक बैंक के सीनियर मोस्ट जो ग्रीवेंस रिड्रेसल ऑफिसर होते हैं उनके पास जाता है। तो उसके बाद अगर आपको फिर भी न्याय नहीं मिलता, तो आप बैंकिंग ओम्बुड्समैन को कांटेक्ट कर सकते हैं। जैसा कि मैंने पहले बताया था, हमारे देश में 22 ऐसे ऑफिसर्स हैं, बैंकिंग ओम्बुड्समैन हैं, जिनका जो अथॉरिटी है और जो जुरिस्डिक्शन है, जिनका क्षेत्रफल जो है वो आपका ब्रांच जहाँ पे पड़ता है उस पे निर्भर है। अगर आपका क्रेडिट कार्ड या डेबिट कार्ड या यूपीआई या ई वॉलेट की कोई समस्या है, तो आपका जो बिलिंग एड्रेस है, कस्टमर का जो ग्राहक का जो बिलिंग एड्रेस है, उसके हिसाब से जो ओम्बुड्समैन का जुरिस्डिक्शन होता है, उनके पास आपको जाना पड़ेगा। जो प्रोसेस है फॉलो करना है इसके लिए, ये काफ़ी जैसे काफ़ी आसान है। इसमें आपको बेसिकली जो ओम्बुड्समैन आपने आइडेंटिफाई किया, जो आपके जुरिस्डिक्शन को देखते हैं, उनके पास आपको एक कंप्लेंट भेजना है। उस कंप्लेंट में आपको कंप्लेंट का फॉर्मेट भी आरबीआई के वेबसाइट पे मौजूद है। कंप्लेंट में बेसिकली 4-5-6 चीज़ों आपको बताना पड़ता है कि आपका अकाउंट कहाँ है, आपका नाम, अकाउंट कुछ डिटेल्स देने पड़ते हैं। फिर जो समस्या है, जो जिसका हल आपको चाहिए, उसको आपको अच्छे से समझाना पड़ेगा। उसके लिए अगर कोई आपके पास एविडेंस है, जैसे स्क्रीनशॉट्स आपने लिए हों, या फिर पासबुक की कॉपी है, प्रति है, या फिर जैसे चेक का कोई इशू है, तो उस चेक की एक प्रति आप रख लीजिए अपने पास, और सबकी एक एक कॉपी बना के उस पूरे कंप्लेंट को आप या तो ईमेल के ईमेल से आप भेज सकते हैं, या फिर आप वैसे फिजिकली आप पूरे सेट को आप भेज सकते हैं बैंकिंग ओम्बुड्समैन के पास। ओम्बुड्समैन, जैसा कि मैंने कहा है, नॉर्मली आरबीआई के जनरल मैनेजर या चीफ जनरल मैनेजर लेवल के होते हैं, तो आप समझ ही सकते हैं ये काफ़ी सीनियर अफसर हैं। और इनका काम होता है कि आपका कंप्लेंट जब उनको मिलता है, तो उस कंप्लेंट को लेके उसकी एक वो प्रति बना के उसको वो बैंक के पास भेज देते हैं, और बैंक को पूछते हैं कि क्यों इसका हल नहीं निकाला गया। और बैंक के पास कुछ समय होता है इसका हल निकालने के लिए। अगर बैंक और कस्टमर इसका हल नहीं निकाल पाते हैं, और इसमें एक्चुअली कोई जेन्युइन ग्राहक को कोई असुविधा हो रही है, तो उसके लिए ओम्बुड्समैन एक ऑर्डर इशू करता है, अवार्ड इशू करता है, जिसमें वो बेसिकली पूरे कंप्लेंट का जो हल है उनके हिसाब से वो नॉर्मली लिख के इशू करते हैं। इसके बाद आपके पास, अगर आप उस हल से खुश नहीं है, उस हल से आप अगर सहमत नहीं है, तो आपके पास एक अपील करने का भी अपॉर्चुनिटी रहता है। ये अपील एक्चुअली आरबीआई के जो सेकंड लेवल के ऑफिसर हैं, सीनियर मोस्ट, डेप्यूटी गवर्नर तक जाता है। डेप्यूटी गवर्नर के पास कुछ समय होता है कि वो देखें, अगर कोई जेन्युइन प्रॉब्लम है जो जिसका हल नहीं निकाल पाया ओम्बुड्समैन ने, तो उसको डेप्यूटी गवर्नर के ऑफिस से इसका हल निकाला जाता है। ये पूरा जो आपका ओम्बुड्समैन के पास जाना, उनका निर्णय आना, टिपिकली और सामान्यतर से ये 45 से 50 दिन तक लग सकता है। और कुछ केसेस में अगर आप अगर आपका कंप्लेंट सही तरह से नहीं फाइल हुआ है, अगर आपने सारी डिटेल्स नहीं लिखे हो, आपने अगर जो ग्राउंड्स हैं, आपके ग्राउंड्स ओम्बुड्समैन स्कीम के अंतर्गत ना आता हो, तो ओम्बुड्समैन उसको रिजेक्ट भी कर देता है। और बहुत जल्दी आपको पता चल जाता है, क्योंकि आपको इमीडिएटली ईमेल, या आप अगर ईमेल से फाइल करते हैं तो ईमेल से ही वो इमीडिएटली वापस आपको भेज देंगे कि इसको हमने रिजेक्ट कर दिया है। काफ़ी इन पे जैसा कि मैंने शायद पहले मेंशन किया था, 2 लाख से ज़्यादा कंप्लेंट इन्होंने 2018-19 में रिजॉल्व किया है। तो इतने कंप्लेंट्स आने की वजह से ये हर केस पे ये डिटेल ऑर्डर नहीं पास कर पाते। तो आपका रिजेक्शन अगर आता है, तो नॉर्मली रिजेक्शन में बहुत ही छोटे या फिर बहुत ही संक्षिप्त भाषा में ये बताते हैं क्यों रिजेक्शन हुआ है। तो आपको जो ओम्बुड्समैन स्कीम है वो फाइल करने से पहले या फिर उसको इस्तेमाल करने से पहले ये ज़रूरी है कि आप अच्छे से स्कीम को पढ़ें, उसको समझें, क्योंकि काफ़ी जगह पे जो ग्राउंड्स लिखे हैं उसमें बैंकों को भी कुछ रियायतें दी गई हैं। जैसे एक ग्राउंड मैंने डिस्कस किया था थोड़ी देर पहले, कि अगर बैंक आपके आवेदन पर अकाउंट ना खोलता हो, आपके साथ ये मैं हिंदी में अनुवाद करते करते मेरी हिंदी भी बेहतर होती जा रही है। अगर बैंक आपके आवेदन से अकाउंट ना खोलता हो, तो आपको ये ग्राउंड है कि आप ओम्बुड्समैन के पास जा सकते हैं। लेकिन इसमें एक बैंक के पास भी एक जो रियायत है वो है कि अगर आपने सही डॉक्यूमेंट्स बैंक को ना दिए हों, तो बैंक के पास जैसे KYC, नो योर कस्टमर डॉक्यूमेंट्स देने पड़ते हैं, वो डॉक्यूमेंट्स अगर आपने सही तरह से ना दिए हों, या फिर वो अगर बैंक के भी कुछ गाइडलाइंस हैं कि किस तरह के डॉक्यूमेंट्स एक्सेप्टेबल हैं, क्या कुछ केसेस में कुछ सर्टिफाइड चाहिए, कुछ सेल्फ सर्टिफाइड चाहिए, तो अगर सही डॉक्यूमेंट्स ना दिए गए हों, या फिर नाम में डिस्क्रिपेंसी हो, या फिर एड्रेस मैच ना कर रहा हो, तो काफ़ी ऐसे टेक्निकल ग्राउंड्स भी हैं जिसपे वो आपके अकाउंट को, आवेदन को रिजेक्ट कर सकते हैं। तो इन सब चीज़ों को भी आपको समझना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ऐसा नहीं है कि आप कुछ भी लेके चले जाएं और ये आपकी अदालत नहीं है कि आप कुछ भी आप जाके पूछ सकते हैं, या फिर वो बता देंगे, या फिर अर्नब गोस्वामी का शो भी नहीं है। तो आपको बेसिकली जो आपके पास जो कंप्लेंट हो, उसके लिए आपके पास कुछ एविडेंस, कुछ जो डॉक्यूमेंट सारे सब कुछ होने चाहिए। उसके बाद आपको यूजुअली जो भी आपकी मांग हो, अगर वो सही है और वो मुनासिब है, तो ओम्बुड्समैन उसको ओम्बुड्समैन का प्रयास रहता है कि दोनों बैंक और ब्रांच को के बीच एक मध्यस्थता करके इस मसले को सुलझाया जाए। जैसे कि मैंने पहले भी शायद बोला हुआ, एक अपील आपके पास होती है, अगर उस अपील से आप सहमत ना हो तो आप ऑब्वियसली आप कोर्ट कचहरी जा सकते हैं। कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट भी आपके पास है। अभी आपने सुना होगा, अखबारों में पढ़ा होगा कि कोई नया कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट भी आया है, कुछ चेंज पूरी तरह से इसका अमेंडमेंट हो चुका है। तो ये एक्चुअली कस्टमर्स के लिए बहुत ही एक क्या कहते हैं इसको, सरल साधन है कि उनको उनके जो पैसे हैं, उनका जो धन है, धनराशि है, उसकी सुरक्षा वो कर सकते हैं। और आपको कस्टमर होने के साथ साथ आप अगर इसको आप बैंकिंग सिस्टम में जाना चाहें, बैंकिंग आप प्रोबेशनर ऐसे एग्जाम जैसे देंगे, तो काफ़ी जगह पे ये शायद ओम्बुड्समैन स्कीम के क्वेश्चंस भी आ सकते हैं। तो स्कीम को अगर आप कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम के तौर से अगर देख रहे हैं, तो आप स्कीम को पढ़िए और इसको इस पे कुछ प्रश्न आ सकते हैं, उसको समझ लीजिए। 2017 के बाद जो स्कीम आया है उसको पढ़ सकते हैं। उसके साथ एक एनुअल रिपोर्ट आया है 2018-19 में, उसको आप पढ़ सकते हैं। और जो ओम्बुड्समैन, बैंकिंग ओम्बुड्समैन का जो पेज है, उस पे FAQs, फ्रीक्वेंटली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस, जो ज़्यादातर पूछे गए प्रश्न भी अवेलेबल हैं, उनको पढ़ सकते हैं। उससे आपको सारा कुछ सरलता से आपको मिल जाएगा। अंकिता जी, आपको होपफुली कुछ समझ में आया मैंने जो कहा?
यस सर, थैंक यू सो मच।
नहीं, आप
यस सर,
थैंक
मुझे
यू।
बहुत अच्छे से समझ में आया, एंड थैंक यू सो मच कि आपने इतने अच्छे से समझाया।
थैंक यू अंकिता जी। कोई यहाँ पे कोई अपना हैंड रेज कर रहे थे, शायद कल्याण जी। कल्याण जी, आपके पास कोई प्रश्न है? या फिर शायद वो अपना रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर बता रहे थे। मुझे लगा कल्याण जी अब बोलेंगे कुछ और, कोई और भाषा में समझाए, तो मुझे एक्चुअली 3 ही भाषाएं आती है, तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली।
नहीं सर, कुछ भी नहीं समझा मैं सर। वो क्या है, मेरे से कुछ शॉपिंग में से हो गया।
अच्छा, कोई बात नहीं। मुझे लगा कि और अगर किसी, नहीं कोई बात नहीं। थैंक यू कल्याण जी।
यस सर।
हाँ बोलिए हिमांशु जी।
गुड मॉर्निंग
गुड मॉर्निंग
सर। My question is, what is the typical money laundering scheme generally based on India level? Can you please explain me in brief?
Himanshu, I think this is typically, not a banking ombudsman related question. There is a separate law which is Prevention of Money Laundering Act. You will have to read that, and maybe, I don't know, if EduBridge will organize further sessions, we can cover that. But ombudsman is a very specific scheme. It's only for customer related complaints, and does not cover any illegal acts. Only in this case, it's only the bank which has done something wrong, and obviously, typically banks will not engage in money laundering, but in case they do, this particular law or scheme will not cover it. So, unfortunately, it is not within the scope of this session. I don't want to, obviously take it to a different tangent. So, I'm sure Monica ji has somebody from EduBridge can take over the session. I think largely we have answered the questions. I don't think there's possibly no scheme related questions left anymore. So over to you, Monica ji. She herself has entered the waiting room. Monica, ma'am, are you around?
Yeah, actually, I was thrown out of Zoom all of a sudden. So now I'm back here.
I think some student has become the host for some time, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So,
No problem. I think we have resolved. Is there any other questions? I think.
Yeah, before going out, I just saw Kalyani had raised her hand. So, Kalyani?
Kalyan said he did not have any question. By mistake, he had raised it.
Okay.
And Himanshu had asked a question on money laundering.
Okay.
And so I said, look, that is not currently being covered in this session, but we can, I think he would request EduBridge to organize a session on prevention of money laundering. So perhaps we can take it up.
So yes, trainees, do you have any more questions? Hello. Yes, this is the right time you can ask questions. We have an expert with us today. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, ma'am.
No questions, ma'am.
No questions?
No, ma'am.
So, sir, then you can cross-check by asking them questions if they have listened carefully.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I think it's very important that, as I mentioned, that everybody should go to the RBI website and read the scheme itself, the FAQs, the last report, and I think that will be very helpful in case I think some of them may be interested in bank exams and various other things. Sometimes this could also come up. And other than that, of course.
So basically it is like this now, when our issue is not resolved by the bank, then only we can go for this ombudsman scheme, right?
That's right, Kavita.
Thank you.
And perhaps, just for practice, you can find out if anybody in your families ever recently had a problem with any bank, anything. You can, just for practice, you can file a complaint also. There's no cost to it, and perhaps they may see a resolution also. So it's a good way of also understanding the scheme by practically also going through it. So if each of you file one complaint each, there are 60 more complaints which can be filed. And of course, there has to be genuine grounds. I'm not suggesting that you file it for any other reasons, but I'm sure, lots of times you'll hear your family members, many people, friends still saying that, look, I withdrew X amount of money, but bank is showing some other issue. Bank is not resolving. Bank did not pay. A lot of senior citizens lots of times complain of the fact that they are not getting they are promised a different rate of interest and they're getting a different rate of interest. So it's very important, I think, that you should also spread the word about the scheme. It's a good scheme for everybody to use. So I will leave you, and hand it over to ma'am in terms of, I think we've covered most of the points.
So from sir's side, he has covered everything. If you do not have any questions at all, if within next 2 minutes, if any question doesn't come, we will take it as it's over now. So if still I'm asking if anybody is having any query, any doubts, please let us know.
अगर किसी
Can I
को
say something? This is Akshada.
Yeah, Akshita.
I'm just calling my video. Yeah, sir, a question to you, just out of curiosity. Like you mentioned that there are certain bank has certain guidelines mentioned. Then how would a common people know? Like if the bank says this is the guideline you have to follow, and but the common people doesn't get convinced with it. Then and you also say that your complaint should be genuine. But then how would we know that whether it is a genuine or not genuine?
Sure. So thank you, Akshada, for very good question. So every bank, as I mentioned to you, has a a code of conduct and a code of standards which are available on its website. You go to the bank's website, you are able to request everybody to put themselves on mute. So keeping that in mind, you should definitely check. Let's say, and I can tell you that is very often the case. The branch manager, first of all, it's very difficult for most nationalized banks to meet the branch manager. So I think that is something which is a typical case. And the branch manager, if you meet him, he will say, "Look, this is as per our standard. This is as per our manual." But the entire standards, etc., is always available on the bank's website now. So that is also a legal requirement. And if the bank is not providing that, you can write to RBI or to the bank. That is something which is clearly they're doing illegal, something illegal. So once you check that, so I think when you have a complaint, let's say you think that, okay, this is an issue, please go look at those standards. For example, let's say you say that the bank had promised you 6% interest on a particular deposit. Please go to the website. They are supposed to, in fact, advertise a list of all the rates they're providing for each and every type of deposit. So in case that is matching with with what they're promised, and they're giving a lesser rate, you should check. Then you can write to the bank first, as I mentioned. See, basically, whether it's a genuine complaint gets flushed out between you right to the bank. If the bank has genuine evidence that, look, your issue is not genuine and you are wrong, the bank will immediately tell you, or the bank will verbally tell you that, look, this is not correct, because they also want to minimize the number of complaints which go to banking ombudsman, because that is not a good statistic for them. And thereafter, if let's say they're not able to give you a good answer, or they don't give you an answer, then you take it up to the ombudsman. So when I say it should be genuine, I want you to look at the grounds which are given in the scheme, the bank's information which is available on the bank's website, and you can look at all of that on your own. You don't need a lawyer, or you don't need any advisor, or you don't need anybody. As long as you're able to read that and go through it, or if you need help, you can ask some friend of yours who's maybe a little more conversant. And basis that, if you feel that, look, there's a genuine case, you can file it. As I have also mentioned, as long as you feel it is genuine, I think it's okay to file. Maybe in certain cases, ultimately you may not get a right answer, but as I said again, there's no cost to that. The only cost is the time and the effort of putting together the complaint and filing it and making some follow-ups. But other than that, I think it's a great way of resolving something without going to court and incurring additional cost, etc. So that is that's very important, that you look at the bank's website and whatever information the bank has put up. If it's a local branch, you can go sometimes on the notice board, they would put up the rate of interest and all that. You can take a photo of that also. So all of that, whatever investigation you can do will help, because typically ombudsman will not look at it for you. Like, you can't send an email to the ombudsman saying, a bank promised me 5% and I finally paid me 4% without any evidence. Then he will say, there's nothing here. How do I decide?
So
So at
basically,
least some
it's like
evidence.
it's like whatever they say, it should be documented.
Yes. And if they say something verbally, a lot of times bank will not put it down in documentation. You should take, let's say they have mentioned, okay, it's available on the website. You go onto the website and take a photo, take a screenshot. Or if they have, let's say they put it up, they've said, look at my notice board. You go to the notice board and take it, because you are the person who's got a complaint. Bank has not got a complaint against you. If the bank has complained against you, then they have your money, so they will just take that money and hold it. So your position is weaker than the bank's position. That is why this scheme is more customer focused, right? Like the Consumer Protection Act, etc.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akshara. Monica, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sir. So I guess it's the time to wind up now, right? Because I don't see if they are having any questions. So thank you very much, sir, for taking out time from your busy schedule and also sharing such a valuable information with all of us. Because this concept, banking ombudsman concept, we have heard about it, but it was not so clear earlier. So now we have got a fair idea about it now. Thank you very much.